You're now listening to the Boys in the Booth podcast with your hosts, Harper Cody, Chad Melbourne, and Casey Abrams. New episodes every Monday on Spotify and Apple Podcasts.
Good evening and welcome to episode 114 of the Boys in the Booth podcast. Cody, Abrams, and Melbourne with you on this Monday evening. Guys, how we doing? Hard to believe that we are almost into February.
Yeah, it's absolutely crazy. It felt like New Year's was yesterday, but doing all right. I'm just glad things are going to be opening again. It started today, and that's mostly for the industry that I work in. You know, restaurants are opening back up, so that's always a good sign for us. And yeah, it's like I got to go golfing on Saturday. I didn't know simulators were open most of this time, but we hit the links. We went to Abu Dhabi on Saturday, and that was a lot of fun. So how you doing, Chad?
Nice. You're in Abu Dhabi on Saturday, and then you're back in Collingwood on Monday. So what a quick trip. That was great. Yep. I'm doing well. I had a good weekend, hung out with some friends and whatnot, celebrated my buddy Ryan's birthday. So shout out to him. Happy birthday, Ryan. Looking forward to the ski trip that we have coming up in a couple weeks here. And also, as I kind of get into this here and do this intro, I wanted to mention that, and I think I'm safe to say this right now, we are currently streaming this live. We're doing a bit of a test run here on Twitch. But you won't be hearing this because nobody knows we're live right now. Only one of our friends does, and he's making sure everything is going smoothly. So as long as things go smoothly and we figure it out, we're not exactly tech guys, but you know, as long as my computer can handle everything, we're going to start streaming live for these episodes. So hopefully you're able to tune in at 5:30 on Mondays. There'll be an announcement if we're going to go ahead with it. So yeah, I'm letting you guys know that, and I'm pretty excited for it because I think we're gonna, you know, could be fun, have people in the comments and whatever, more interaction. I think it could be a good thing. So I'm feeling good, looking forward to that, looking forward to the trip we've got coming up, generally just in a good mood. Harper, how about you, man? What's up?
Yeah, guys, I'm doing good. Really excited about our trip in a couple of weeks. Definitely in need of a little getaway, and just really glad that things are opening back up here. Not only was the weekend really good, just with kind of relaxation and watching some hockey, but honestly, the entire week was really good. We had a great episode with Andrew Jarvis that if you haven't gone and listened to that yet, please do so. That was a really fun episode, a really great interview. And then Bell Let's Talk Day was last week and was able to do an interview with a really, really great guest that you're going to hear from later on to wrap up this episode. So yeah, doing good, guys.
Yeah, and I want to say too, that episode blew up. So thank you to everyone who listened. Like, that was one of our best episodes. And then the previous week as well was Remy Monaco, and that was a great episode as well. We've had great success over the last couple weeks, so we're just looking to kind of ride that train.
Awesome. All right, let's get into episode 114 here, fellas. And this is just going to be a quickie. As we mentioned, we've got a special guest from Bell Let's Talk Day that is going to be coming up a little later on. But before that, we'll do a little fantasy corner to kick things off. And then I've got 3 questions for cap or no cap for you guys as well. So, Casey, let's get into fantasy corner and give us a little update on where you're at in the Boys in the Booth Fantasy Hockey League.
I'm absolutely crumbling in this pool lately. I think the last 4 weeks I've been projected to win, and then I've lost. Last week it was just one of those cases where all my players played on the same days. So there was 3 nights where I had 3 guys in the lineup, and there was 3 nights where I had 4 guys on the bench playing games. So basically all my players were playing on the same night, like every other night. So I just lost due to games played. Like Emerson, I think, had like 10 more games played than me or something like that. And he took it no problem. So I did make 4 moves to try to do something, but it just did not work out for me. Another tough week, but looking to rebound with an absolute blood feud hate spree against Chad here. So basically I don't want to compare myself to like, I don't know, Robin Hood or someone like that, but everyone's looking for me to take down Chad and try to end his tyranny in this league as the dictator at the top of his regime here, the chancellor of the fantasy group here. So it looks like it's going to be tight right now. The projections, they're bouncing around a little bit. I looked earlier today and I was in the lead, but the projections right now are 256 for me and 261 for Chad. So I'm pretty excited. And it all starts tonight with the Devils versus Toronto, and got some players in that game. So
yeah, same here. I've got Jesper Bratt case for back-to-back nights. So he's going to score probably against the Leafs in these two games here. And it's going to be good news for me, even though he's scoring against the Maple Leafs. So I'm looking forward to that. Couldn't have been a better week for us to be playing each other because of these two games, Toronto and New Jersey, to kick it off. Like, it's going to be fun to watch that later on. And I want to go back to last week before I get into this heavyweight bout that it's going to be in between us this week. But last week I played the mail order brides, and that's Corey Morrell, and he is in dead last in the league. And it's not even close. And his record's terrible. His points for are terrible. But my God, boys, when I tell you he gave me a run for my money, he did. And he made it so close. And he was kind of roasting me a bit in the chat today. And he said that if he had Michael Bunting in the lineup for his literal hat trick game, it would have made a difference. And it would have. He got, I think, 14 points that night. I beat him, by roughly 15. So it would have been even closer than it was. But at the end of the day, I got the W. Another week, another W for the multiple scoregasms, but another week and another W for the meatheads as well, which, again, like, Luke just keeps going with these wins. He can't lose. He's currently sitting in first place. He's the only team above me in the standings right now at number 1, but my total points are there, and eventually I'm going to catch Luke. His luck with the, riding Detroit's entire roster is going to, it's going to give out. So I'm just hoping for that to happen soon.
I'm going to jump in here.
Yep.
And I'm perhaps going to try to maybe sewer the first place Luke Sheridan and try to tell everyone in the league what's going on and what he's been doing. At least what I've noticed a few times is that this man does not update his roster right away. He lets you get this little false security when you see your projections are higher, and then you look at 7 or 6:55 on a Monday and you go, oh crap, he fixed his lineups and now he's projected to win. So it's a oldest play in the playbook in terms of fantasy, but I've noticed he's been doing that, and LVB and I have been calling that out once we saw it. So here I am live on Twitch calling out Luke Sheridan, the only guy listening.
Yeah Luke, he's sneaky with it, man. Like he does that. He told me that he does that before, like because I noticed a few weeks ago, and I didn't say anything, but I was looking at his projections against whoever it was, and I was like, oh man, like it looks like you haven't set your lineup or whatever. And he's like, oh no, I have, but only for the day. Yeah. So that's sneaky.
So he sent in the group chat today a picture of his projections versus whoever he's playing this week. I think it's
Harper, isn't it?
It's Harper. Yeah. He sends it against Harper. It's 119. His projections are 119. If he only gets 119 points in 2 weeks, then why is he in first place? And that's because he hasn't updated his lines. So calling him out right here.
Yeah, he's sneaky with it. And Luke is our guy who's monitoring the Twitch. And again, hopefully things go well. I don't think things are going well right now by the sounds of it. He's texting me. I think there's some lag, but we'll get through the issues, and hopefully we can start doing this on a weekly basis. But yeah, back to fantasy case, talking about our week now, and Harp, I promise we'll get to you as well. But this is going to be an absolute juggernaut match, because also, don't forget, this week is extended to 2 weeks. So we might see some of the highest point totals in the history of our league so far, because what will happen is the All-Star break is happening, obviously. Like this is coming up, and it's extended. There's a break, but then a bunch of games are being jammed in next week when the NHL was supposed to go to the Olympics. So there's a ton of games. I think I have like 55 or something, which is at least 10 more than I would say an average week. And so it's going to be fun, Case, and it's going to come down to the wire. I will say, though, if we're looking at projections, or I was today, I believe most people have set their lines except for maybe Luke. He's the exception, but it's not even going to be close for points for number 1 and 2 this week, Case. It's going to be us. Like it has to be, right?
As we were sitting here, my games just went up to 60, so I think it's guaranteed. And that's the most frustrating thing about my season is that I'm 3rd in points for, 4th in points for, but I'm 8th in the league. So it's just, I just take these awkward little beatings. It's tough.
Yeah, the standings are tight right now, by the way. Like, I'm looking at the standings, and between like 4th and 10th right now, like that's 1 or 2 weeks difference that could swing everything, and only top 8 make the playoffs, remember. So it's going to be a super tight race to the finish here for a playoff spot.
Well, for me, guys, I was looking to get a win last week, of course, as you know, trying to do every week and trying to string some wins together, and lost to your brother-in-law Cameron Chad, the Arizona Blackhawks, by just 7 points. To fall to 4-11 on the season. So just a really tough result to see, and had some really great performances by certain guys. Patty Kane had 22.5 points for me last week. This week, though, as you guys mentioned there, playing against the Meatheads, Luke Sheridan, who's 13-2, and I'm actually projected to win by 2 points. I think it's at like 151 to 149 right now. So hey, we'll see how it goes. And again, after such a close matchup last week and just coming up short, determined to give Mr. Luke Sheridan a good run this week. So Luke, know you're watching.
Were you just not listening to me the whole time? The fact that he doesn't set his lineup, and that's why his projections are like that?
I was listening to you.
He's going to set his lineup, and he's going to have like 40 more projected points than you. I almost guarantee it.
I know.
He probably will, man. He's sneaky. Like, that's his definition. It's sneaky. And that's why he's in first place, because he gives you a false sense of security. And then you're like, okay, I'm projected to win by 20 points, and, it doesn't matter what happens, because, if you're looking at it, you're like, I don't need to make extra moves. I don't need to drop a guy or whatever. And then all of a sudden he beats you, and that's what he does. So keep an eye on it, Harp. Like, bury him, please, because Harper, if you win this week, if you beat him and I beat Casey, I'm in first place again, baby. It's been too long.
Yes, there we go. All right. Well, looking forward to another good week of fantasy hockey, and let's get to cap or no cap now, fellas.
You're now listening to Cap or No Cap right here on the Boys in the Booth podcast.
No cap, this shit bussin'.
The 3 questions that I've got for you guys are, there's a theme here, and it is the Western Canadian teams in the NHL. So here we go. Let's start with the first one. Cap or no cap, the Vancouver Canucks will be the first team to make some big moves ahead of the trade deadline on March 21st. Case?
How do I phrase this? No cap. They're 100% going to be making a ton of moves here, and not in the way that I think we all expected. We thought that maybe this team was looking to try to push for playoffs and, make some meaningful hockey at late in the season. But it sounds like they're going to be clearing out the cupboards here. New GM and looking for a new core. They're going to stick around with obviously the main guys in Pettersson, Horvat. That's the untouchables, but they're looking to move on guys like Miller and Garland and, well, any other forward who's not named Pettersson and Horvat. So I know that they are going to be making a ton of moves, and they're just going to be getting picked apart in the media of who's tied to Vancouver and all these deals. I know I've already heard that the Devils are interested in Connor Garland. So a lot of good guys there, but they have to pick a direction. They're at that stage where it's like they're on an in-between and they have to figure it out. And I think the new GM is looking for new guys to kind of maybe take a step back, finish off the rebuild properly, and then play some meaningful hockey in the next 2 years. But, you've heard things like how JT Miller he's been butting heads with some of the young guys in the dressing room. Him, along with a couple other guys, were not happy with the way the young guys were in the dressing room, or like their mentality with the hockey. So, it sounds like he's going to be one of the guys on his way out. And for my fantasy team, that's maybe a good thing. Maybe that means he's going to a better hockey team and he'll put up even more points, but maybe that means he's going to be sheltered. Yeah. So who knows? But yeah, I think they're going to make some big moves.
Case, before I answer, I just want to say that I've had the same kind of feelings about JT Miller going to a new team, because I have him in my other league, as you know, and obviously he's an absolute dynamo in fantasy. I think he's like consistently top 10 ranked. He's phenomenal. So I'm thinking to myself, like, would it be good if he went to a contender and played, again, top line minutes and whatever? Would that be good for fantasy, or would it be bad because then it's being divvied up, like the points are being divvied up more? Like, say he goes to like a Boston or something, which, like, of course it would be Boston, and then they beat the Leafs in the first round or something. But if he goes to Boston, like, the points are just shared more, because
he'll be on PP2, he'll be on mine too. It's like, for that reason, I'm a little worried. There's other ways to look at it for sure. Like, he'll have more guys passing the puck, and however you want to skin it, like it's going to make an impact on our teams.
Yeah, for sure. So I'll answer this one, Harp, and I'll say cap. I don't think the Canucks will be the next Western Canadian team to make a deal. I believe that's ahead of the deadline. I believe that's what the cap or no cap question was. Because I think it's going to be the Edmonton Oilers. We've already seen the Oilers make a big splash in signing Evander Kane, which, by the way, fantasy implications, unbelievable. He got me 6 points in his first game, and he finished 23rd in the league last year, according to our fantasy stats. So I got him for free. Let's go. But yeah, I think the next thing for the Oilers is going to be a goalie, and I think they do it before Vancouver tries to sell anyone, because I think the need is there for the Oilers more so than it is for Vancouver, because of course Vancouver, if they're going to decide this, they want to sell and get some value back for their assets. But I think the more pressing issue is for the Oilers, because they can't miss the playoffs. It's not an option for them. They need to bulk up at the deadline. So I think they just have a pressing need. And obviously it's defense and goalies. Goaltending is the number one. So I think that's what they do. So I think they're the next Canadian team to make a big move.
Yeah, well, and honestly, the question was just in general that, like, the Vancouver Canucks, out of all the teams in the league, will be the first to make the big moves, and Patrick Alvin comes in as the GM, and he'll be working with Jimmy Rutherford, and like Case, as you mentioned, they're in a tough spot, like to be up against it with the cap and to not be a playoff team is not a good position to be in. And unfortunately, the Canucks would love to sit there and say, okay, like, we're going to trade out guys like Myers and Poolman and Dickinson and guys like that. But unfortunately, they have to send out players that they like JT Miller and Connor Garland and those guys, because there should be some pretty good value in return. And just going back to JT Miller, the New York Rangers seem to be the team that we're hearing a lot about. He has been there before as a potential suitor for him. So anyways, it'll be interesting to see what Vancouver does here in the coming weeks, because I think we're about 6 weeks away from the deadline. So
for me, Vancouver, sorry, before we move on from this one, for me, Vancouver is 2 years away from being in an Edmonton Oilers situation where we've been waiting for them to be good. And now they're going to start ruining the best years of their best players. Their Pettersson, their Hughes, Besser, Horvat, whoever else you want to throw in there, they're going to start wasting the prime years of these guys if they don't turn it around right now. And I think that starts by taking a step back, honestly, with Vancouver. It's a little different than Edmonton. Edmonton needs to take the step forward now. Vancouver needs to take one step back, so in 2 years, they're better than Edmonton. So
agreed.
It's got to be something, and it's got to be now. And yeah, that's it.
Yeah. You mentioned Besser there, and quickly before we move on, a decision will have to be made on him because his qualifying offer alone will be $7.5 million. So, he's another guy they're going to have to make a decision on. All right, guys, let's move on to the Edmonton Oilers, a team that we mentioned a few times there. So Evander Kane, of course, gets signed, gets his first goal in their win over the Habs on the weekend. So cap or no cap, Evander Kane will end up being a long-term fit for the Edmonton Oilers. Chad?
I'm going to say no cap. I think that makes a lot of sense for this team. I mean, there weren't a ton of teams who were actually willing to pull the trigger and get a deal done with Evander Kane, but the Oilers were one of them, and they seemingly have no regrets at this point. He fits in perfectly in that lineup, doesn't he? Because what does this team need? They need depth scoring. Evander Kane is a guy who can score 30 goals if he's next to, McDavid or Draisaitl, or if he's playing in a depth role, and he can give you power play minutes. He can bring some physicality, and I think the Oilers, it just makes sense. They don't really have a lot else up front aside from obviously the big two. They've got Hyman and he's been fine, and they've got some other guys like Puljujarvi and Yamamoto and whatever, and again, they've been fine, but frankly disappointing as a group. So I think it makes sense for Kane to stay there long term if they can reach a deal, because that's another thing. Like, what is that going to look like? What is his next deal going to look like? I have no idea. We'll have to see how he plays this year, but I can't imagine it being that expensive, right? So I think it makes total sense long term.
This one, I'm torn on this one, because for all the reasons why Chad just mentioned, for the player type, for how he can play on the ice, I want to say no cap. He's going to be there for a long time. It's a perfect fit. But then when you think about his history and what we've seen from him so far, and then negotiations, those are totally different things on how that could work out. Like, when I look at negotiations, Edmonton's just going to be banging the drum of his history. They're going to be constantly bringing that up, and he's not going to get the money that he's looking for, especially to get himself out of debt. And I think that the way he's going to get the most money is on the open market again. So that part scares me. But Ken Holland said he believes in second chances. I guess he also believes in seventh chances, because that's how many he's on now. And I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt and give him an eighth chance and say no cap. This is his fit, just because of the way he can play with this team. He already made me put my foot in my mouth on Saturday when they won 7-2 with him in the lineup. He scored a goal. His interview was all about the team, big group effort, just happy to get the 2 points, etc. So it looks like maybe he's trying to fit in, do the right thing, and score some goals. So I guess I'm gonna go ahead and say he's a long-term fit here.
Perfect. Yeah, no, I just thought it was a good question to ask. And the Oilers were kind of put in a tough position. They needed to do something. The losing has gone on for a while, and now they've won 4 straight, and he gets a goal in his first game. And so it's early yet, but it is a legitimate question, I think, and the fact that they were able to get this guy for basically nothing. It's a free player. They didn't have to give up any assets. And now they can focus on some saved assets for a goaltender and a depth defenseman, like you mentioned there, Chad. So, but just back to Evander Kane, I think it could be a real possibility that he ends up with this team long term, and I'm glad you guys agree as well.
Yeah,
all right,
he's on pace for like high 30 goals now.
That's true. That is true.
Perfect. All right, let's move on to our final cap or no cap question for this episode. And Johnny Gaudreau, he will get some votes. Excuse me, can't talk tonight. He will get some votes for the Hart Trophy this season. Gaudreau put up 19 points in the month of January, a very good month for him, including his overtime winner against the Vancouver Canucks on Saturday night, which was, by the way, Chad, Jacob Markstrom's 7th shutout of the season. So anyway, Gaudreau will get some Hart Trophy votes this season, cap or no cap. Casey.
All right, I'm going to put a little spin on this, and I'm going to say he won't get significant votes for the Hart Trophy. He might get, a couple third and fourth placers, but I guess for the sake of this question, I'm going to say cap. I'm worried about this team. I think that they're hot right now. They're very hot right now. Some would almost say flaming.
Ooh.
But I think it's only a matter of time that this team starts to crumble. And I think that that's going to have an effect on Johnny Gaudreau Hart Trophy votes, because it's all about making the playoffs and really leading your team and being that true catalyst. And I think if this team does make the playoffs, it's via a group effort. So I don't think that smells of Hart Trophy. And but I will say he's certainly having a much better year than his last 2 years, definitely helping his salary negotiations and, ending the trade rumors, in my opinion. I think they want him to stick around now for sure. So, yeah, I'm going to say cap on the significant votes, but he'll get a couple third and fourth places.
Yeah, I'm going to say cap for the same reason, Case. I don't think he'll get a significant amount of votes. If we go back a few episodes ago, I made a very clear distinction for when I brought up Timo Meier. I said he will get, not an insignificant amount of votes. And you can interpret that however you wish, but I just wanted to be specific, so I'll be equally specific for this one. I don't think he will get a significant amount of votes because there are just too many other good players in the league who I think are having incredible seasons, and I just don't think he's up there. So yeah, I agree, he might receive some third and fourth place votes, but I just think of the players around the league who are doing even more individually for their teams. And Timo Meier is a guy who is a dark horse to think about that. But then there's the normal guys who are in there all the time. There's Draisaitl, McDavid, there's Austin Matthews. There's also UC Saros, who is having an incredible year. Igor Shesterkin. Those are a couple goalies to look out for.
When you talk about team effect and like most valuable player of the team, you think about guys like Saros and then Kirill, Kaprizov, Alex Ovechkin on his team this year. I already put my future for him to win the Hart Trophy. So, there's a lot of guys out there that are making significant impacts to their team. And then, Johnny's certainly having an incredible year and on pace to have a career year. But I think there's a lot going on the Flames that, there's Markstrom, there's Matthew Tkachuk, 5 apples the other night. Like, there's a lot of guys really clicking for that team, and they're very hot right now, but I am worried about the future and the rest of the season for them. So, I'm worried about giving Johnny Gaudreau Hart Trophy votes right now.
Yeah, and when I think about it too, like when I think about the Flames, Harp, you mentioned Markstrom right off the top, 7th in league leading shutout. You don't have to tell me that. I have him in fantasy. He's one of my goalies, and he's ridiculous. He's one of the highest ranked goalies this year because he keeps getting so many damn shutouts, and he's been phenomenal all year. But I also I immediately also think of Matthew Tkachuk, who is another guy who's having an incredible year. Elias Lindholm had a really great start and propelled this team to where they are as well. So they've had a lot of pretty good seasons from a lot of guys. And, so I don't think that Hart makes sense for Gaudreau right now anyway. Great season.
Yeah, and obviously, with that question, it was not that he would get significant votes, right, but just that the Hart Trophy race is kind of it's a little bit wide open right now. And another name for me is Nazem Kadri of the Colorado Avalanche, who's just had an outstanding season. And anyway, great month of January. He's been great, but good points by you both that it certainly has been a group effort. And that's kind of the narrative with the Flames, that last year it was a good group that underachieved. And so will we see the same thing this season? Maybe. But hopefully not. So anyway, good feedback on those guys. And now moving on to a great interview with Michael Landsberg, of course, former TSN personality, the former host of his show Off the Record for so many years on TSN, and also did mornings on TSN 1050, and has founded the organization called Sick Not Weak, which is all around getting help with mental health struggles. And so I was really happy to get a chance to talk to someone this big about mental health on Bell Let's Talk Day on Wednesday, which was super successful, by the way, guys. Over 160 million interactions, which means that $8.2 million from Bell gets donated to mental health programs in Canada. So really looking forward to playing this interview for our listeners, and we hope you enjoy it. It is an absolute pleasure to welcome this next guest to the show. He is a former personality with TSN and the founder of Sick Not Weak. Please welcome Mr. Michael Landsberg. Michael, how are you this morning?
Harper, I'm very well and very pleased to be with you. Thanks for giving me the chance to talk.
No, thank you so much for coming on the show. And Michael, first off, I just want to give you my condolences to you and your family on the passing of your father last week.
Thank you. He was. If there's a reason for me to do what I do with mental health, he would be as good a reason as any. My dad, when he passed away, people have been reaching out to me, basically saying he was the nicest guy they ever met. He was an orthodontist, and everyone that came into his office loved him. So I feel blessed to have his memory to drive me to do good things.
That is so wonderful. And so, Michael, when did you first kind of realize that, you didn't feel good, that something just wasn't right?
Yeah, there's two things, Harper. When I was my earliest memories were are one of having anxiety, which is something totally different, but actually related but different than depression. So we'll leave the anxiety part and say that I guess it was the first year we started Off the Record, so that was 1997.
Yeah.
After about 9 months of doing that show, and it had nothing to do with the show, I'm just using that as a marker. I turned down an offer to do something that I thought afterwards, wow, why did I do that? This is the kind of thing that I would jump at.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, I didn't do this and I didn't do that. And I remember canceling this. And I remember, leaving this party early. And we kind of went through it. I went through it all in my head and evaluated it. And I said, oh my gosh, I didn't know because it happened so slowly, but there is something really wrong with me. Yeah. It was like I had been replaced by a different person, that I was not the same person I was. And I knew what it was. I knew it was depression. And that's, for me, kind of how the process of trying to get help began. But the lesson from that is that you can be suffering, you can be battling an illness and not know you have it because it changes you so slowly, you don't notice the changes.
So, Michael, the other day, a young man posted a video on Twitter talking about just how he feels so alone, and he was crying, and you gave him some really great advice. Can you share with us what you said to this young man?
I think he may have to share it. I mean, I remember, I know he's a huge wrestling fan and a lovely young man who battles, serious depression. And he finds it very difficult to have people that he can talk to because even though you can be surrounded by a million people, I mean, you can literally you could say, I work at a place where I'm one of 100 people and we are all in a big room together and we're there all the time. That can still leave you feeling incredibly lonely. It's not how many people are around us. It's how many people understand us. One person who can say, I get it. I know what this feels like is incredibly powerful. And that's why we created Sick Not Weak to some extent, was for people to have a community of others that understand them.
Yes, and I want to get into Sick Not Weak. So you mentioned it for a second there. Let's get more into that. Tell us more about Sick Not Weak.
It's 2022. Not that that's a breaking news story. This just in for Michael Landsberg, veteran broadcaster. It's 2022. It's 2022, and the stigma still exists. And whether it's less now, whether it's a lot less now, I don't know. I mean, that's not for somebody like me who only meets it. It's not like I do surveys, but it's still a problem. And to me, the issue, the creation of the stigma is based on the idea that a mental illness like depression is not an illness like others, like anything that you can think of. Those are physical illnesses that all of us think, okay, well, not his fault that he has heart disease, not his fault that he has prostate cancer. Those things just happen to us. But people don't see mental illness that way. For instance, depression. They think, well, like I heard Landsberg talking, in the morning on the radio station, and he was talking about depression, and, well, maybe he's just got to start to look around and appreciate. He's got pretty good, and start thinking of all the good things. And while it sounds ludicrous to say that, that's how we think. And that's how I thought. Before I got hit by depression, I had no idea what it was. None. I thought it was just sadness. Well, you mentioned my dad. My dad died last Friday. That makes me really sad. But it does not make me depressed.
So you can visit sicknotweak.com, of course, for more information. Check out everything that's there. And Michael, just thank you so much for this. Thank you for being such a presence when it comes to mental health, and being someone that you can talk to, and being so open about the struggles with mental health and depression. So again, sir, thank you so much for joining us on Bell Let's Talk Day.
Hey, this was awesome. Thanks, and good questions, man. Good job.
This has been another episode of Boys in the Booth with Harper Cody, Chad Melbourne, and Casey Abrams. New episodes every Monday on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Connect with the Boys in the Booth on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube at Boys in the Booth. Visit boysinthebooth.com for show details, and don't forget, you can become a patron of the podcast for just $1 a month at www.patreon.com/boysinthebooth.